Welcome to this episode of Consider It Blacklit. I am Kim, your host, and for those of you tuning in for the first time, Consider It Blacklit highlights films, television programs, and stage plays that feature African Americans both up front and behind the scenes. We also discuss social issues as it relates to some of these programs and how they may or may not impact our communities. So thank you for tuning in, and we hope you continue to tune in each week. Today it is my pleasure to have an actress, writer, producer, director. She has a one-woman show called Harriet Tubman Herself. It is my pleasure to introduce Christine Dixon. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for having me. It truly is an honor to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here. So before we start talking about your project, why don't you tell our audience about yourself?
Sure. Born and raised in New York. And as a child, I did my first musical. I was about approximately 6 years old. My mother studied at the Conservatory of Music in Switzerland. My mother always loved the arts, and her goal in life was to be an artist and a nun. So when
nun?
A nun, yes.
Okay.
So when she finally arrived in America, she studied at NYU, and during her lunch breaks, she would always go to church. So that day, she's sitting down praying, opens up her eyes, looks across the pew to a man named Michael. They were married a year later, 8 children later.
Wow, 8 children. So much for being a nun.
Yes, exactly, yes. So when my mother, as a child, I remember my mother coming home, she would never just, open up the door and say, "Children, I'm home." You would hear like the jingling of the keys, and then you would always hear, "Ave Maria." And that's how every single day. And I would run down the stairs, "Mommy's home, Mommy's home." And then as she's singing, I would just jump in with her, "Don Venose Carter." And we would just sing. And
Wow.
I didn't have a voice lesson or anything at the time. And I said, "Mommy, I want to sound like you. I want to sing. I want to be a performer." Because my mom, once she got married and had children, she kind of left her dreams, on the side of the road, unfortunately. So she kind of lived vicariously through me.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So tell me, how did you get into acting? I could see your draw towards music.
Yes, I never wanted to be an actress.
Really?
Never wanted to be an actress. I thought acting was boring and bland, and what a life to have to act, and oh my goodness. And I just always wanted to sing like my mom. And then I think approximately 15, someone was like, "Oh, Chris, we're gonna do these like improvisational theater. We're gonna write skits to help empower our peers and teach them about STDs and unwanted pregnancies and the importance of being abstinent." So I said, "Oh, well, that's kind of cool." And then someone else saw me doing a skit, and they said, "Oh, can you do my play?" And I said, "Is there music in it?" They said, "No, it's not a musical." I said, "All right, I guess I'll try it." But it was never really my thing. And then fast forward a few years later, I received an email from this production at the time called Drama Tune Productions, and they auditioned me for a musical about a sailor man and his fiance, but I didn't get the role. And then 2 years later, I get a call from Mona Murphy Martell. She's a Hollywood book and theater critic today, and one of the founding mothers of the New York Women in Film and Television. And she's from London, and so she cast me as her lead singing reindeer in her musical Santa Claus is Missing. Now there was music in it, so I was like, "All right." And so she said, "You're going to be our lead Santa, and you're going to sing." And all I heard was music. I'm like, "Sure, yes, let's do this." And now I did not know that when we opened in 2006, that when Mona first came from London, she's an Irish woman from London, so when Mona first came to America, the first African-American woman she read about was Harriet Tubman.
Wow.
I did not know this until maybe a year ago. So long story short, I did Dasher, the lead singing reindeer, 2006, 2007, January 2nd, 2008. Mona calls me up, "Oh, hello, darling, how are you?" And I was like, "Mona?" She's like, "Yes, love, happy New Year." So she said, "Because of you, I was able to complete my show about Harriet Tubman." And she said that she wanted me to be a part of the cast. I said, "Sure. When the cast is assembled, let me know so we can have our first staged reading." She said, "Oh, darling, it's a one-woman show." I said, "A one-woman show? I don't know how to act." I said, "Mona, let me go you have connections with Juilliard and Yale School of Dramatic Arts. Can you write me a letter of recommendation and let me go learn how to act? And then I'll come back in 4 years. And she said, hey, pish posh, darling, you don't need those schools. She said, they will strip you of your natural God-given talents. So I said, if you have that much faith in me, I'll do it if it's one show. She said, the contract is 4 shows. I said, okay, I'll do it if it's 15 minutes. She said, well, it's 50 minutes long, and you must do a Q&A after each and every show. So we opened up our very first show, November 7th, 2008, on Staten Island at Cromwell Center, which has now been demolished, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
And last night was my 528th show, performed in Ocho Rios, Jamaica, Grand Cayman Islands. Mayor de Blasio's wife asked me to perform for her family out in Harare in Zimbabwe. And yeah.
Wow, so enough of the music, now you're doing dramatics.
Yes, however, I do sing the same 6 old Negro spirituals that Harriet Tubman actually sang on the plantation.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
So you were able to incorporate the music into the show.
Yes.
So you've already told us how you got involved. Tell us, like, where has it been? You said you had over 528 performances.
Yes, so
Yeah, so just tell us a little bit about some of your favorite places that you performed.
Yeah. Okay, well, I did the Dramatists Guild on Broadway, 44th and Broadway. It was like a one-night special with Christine and Harriet. That was pretty amazing. I think that was my 100th standing ovation. So that was pretty awesome, performing on Broadway for one night. My other favorite place was performing at Harriet Tubman's home, the home she purchased after the Civil War ended in Auburn, New York. So I was able to go to this home, and I was given a tour of Harriet Tubman's home. I saw her bed, her icebox.
And that gave you extra inspiration?
It did. It was amazing. And then I turn around, they're like, oh, Chris, please meet Pauline Johnson, Harriet Tubman's great-great-grand-niece.
Wow.
So now 11 of Harriet Tubman's living relatives, her descendants, are there. And I performed on the property for approximately 350 people.
So I'm assuming you've had diverse audiences, not just African Americans.
Oh, yes. A lot of Hawaiian audiences, Filipino audiences.
Tell us about some of the reactions of the audiences
So
that you've
when
had.
I did the Hawaiian and Filipino audiences, you know, you're kind of unsure as far as, you know, the musical Negro spirituals. You don't know if they're really going to feel it. So as you know, when I'm doing, you know, wade in the water, you see the, you know, little Filipino and Hawaiians just like moving like this. And then when I get to the scene where Harriet Tubman married John Tubman at 24, you know, black people, we were not allowed in courthouses in 1844, well, in the 1840s. So Harriet Tubman and John Tubman, they actually had to jump over the broom, which is a West African custom and Ashanti tribe tradition.
Right.
So get this, during that scene, the Filipinos and the Hawaiians stand up and they say, Harriet, till this day, that is our custom during our wedding. So there are a lot of similarities, you know. There's something for everyone. I did these honor students I did the show for, and you know, we're all had their glasses and sophisticated, and but 3 of them had on like Vans, sneakers, VANS. So I'm like, I think they may be skateboarders or breakdancers. I don't know why or how, but I just went up to them, and when I got to the Freedom Land, I said, you guys want to battle Harriet? And I started breakdancing.
So it sounds like you kind of improvise each performance
to tailor it to the audience. Yes.
Yeah. What's that process like? Is it something that you have to plan ahead of time?
Never.
Or you just do it at the spur of the moment?
I just do it at the spur of the moment. I never know, because I don't get to see my audience until I step in and say, my train. So I never, you know, some people, they're on stage, they peek behind the curtain like, who's in the audience? Okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No. I just let the ancestors guide me. I never know.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very interactive. I bring the children on stage with me. I bring the senior citizens on stage. When they're bald men, I rub their head and kiss it as I'm singing. And it's a very interactive and a very fun show. So I call myself an edutainer. Not that I like labels, but I educate you as I entertain you.
Yeah. And you also mentioned that you have a Q&A after.
Yes.
So tell us about some of the questions that come up, and has there been a question that's been so challenging that you struggled to answer it?
No. 528 shows, I've never struggled to answer a question. I just, whatever, like, you know, like Morna said, you're pretty witty. So my very first question ever, November 7th, 2008, the very first question was, were you brave in your dreams? You know, and so people think that children, this was an 8-year-old boy who asked me this question.
Wow.
So people think, oh, the children aren't going to listen. It's Harriet Tubman. It's boring. It's boring. But then they absorb everything I say to them. And I think me bringing them on stage and bringing them to help me act out the story and walking around the room with them and having them sing with me, you know, but some amazing questions.
So tell us about some of the awards.
So I was given a citation from Brooklyn Borough President Eric L. Adams. Yes, and then the National Council of Negro Women recently honored me. That was pretty amazing as well. And then the Harriet Tubman Purple Hat Society gave me the first ever Harriet Tubman Legacy Award.
Wow, that is amazing.
Yes, and then I was also selected. My name was selected by NASA to go up in a time capsule on the Maven spacecraft. So it was my name, Diana Ross, Tracy Ellis Ross, Samuel L. Jackson, John Singleton. May he rest in peace.
So it seems like you've been doing this character for a minute. So tell us, how is it similar to your own personality? Do you have any similarities with Harriet? How are you guys different, and how do you channel your own personality into the character?
Okay, well, as you know, she's this great, amazing heroine. So when Morna Murphy Martell first said, I want you to be Harriet, I said, oh, I can't touch that. This amazing heroine. And then I read letters to Harriet from Frederick Douglass and Captain John Brown, who were her good friends in real life. And they all said the same thing. She had an amazing sense of humor. Even Harriet said she always had to laugh to keep from crying. So I knew that she had an amazing sense of humor. I think I'm funny. Only my mother and I think I'm funny. No one else does. So Harriet Tubman is witty. I can be witty at times. But I just ask her, let your personality come through me. I always ask her that before every show. So I call on her. I call on, right before every show, I call on Harriet Tubman. I call on Dr. Maya Angelou. I call on Tupac. I know it's all right. But yeah, and I just ask that, let them see you, because a lot of people say to me, I didn't know Harriet was funny, because your show was, I was expecting to come here and it'd be a crying fest. I said, well, no, I mean, there are dramatic pieces where I can cry on cue, and I do cry. However, Harriet Tubman, she wasn't this angry, bitter black woman.
There were a lot of sides to her, yeah.
Many, many sides to her, and all the dreams and visions that she has.
Have you seen anyone else perform Harriet that may have inspired you? I remember there was a program called Underground.
Yes.
And one of the episodes, the actress, I can't think of her name escapes me right now.
Yeah.
The entire episode was her doing a monologue of Harriet Tubman.
Yes.
And it was just amazing.
I had the honor of meeting her.
Oh, really?
Yes,
so
we took pictures together.
Yeah. Was that, how did that affect you? Did you, do you use that sometimes as inspiration, or it gives you ideas?
No,
Yeah.
it never gives me ideas because, and I feel like Harriet gave me this, and I feel like Harriet chose me. Because Morna could have gone any way with any other young lady, and Morna chose me. So I feel that Harriet Tubman specifically chose me. But I never compare myself, and I don't really get anything from them, because all the reading, the research that has gone into this, and meeting historians, meeting Harriet Tubman's living relatives, I drink her. I breathe Harriet. Yeah.
So what do you think about the new movie that's coming out in November?
Yeah, with Crystal. Yeah, so I'm excited for it. You know, a lot of people, I know some people are a little upset because of the comments she made back in 2013 about, black women and everything, and then, the fact that she's a British actress and there's so many African American actresses in America, but I mean, I'm okay with it, because the more people Google her, I pop up, and it's just more work for me, so I'm okay with it, and I'm grateful for the extra work that will come my way because of Hollywood doing these productions, which will most likely be watered down. Of course.
You think so?
Oh, of course. They're not going to speak about, the white man Harriet Tubman shot, and, she always said,
they have to put that in the movie. That's where I'm going.
I bet you $100. Okay, I'll bet you $100 cash that they will not put that in the movie.
But the thing is, you can't tell her story unless you put all of that in there. And it's not like people don't know that happened. You know what I'm saying?
I guarantee you they won't put her second husband, Nelson. I bet you another 100. They won't put Nelson Davis in it, her second husband, who is 13 years younger than her. But she's not a cougar, so don't judge.
No, I'm not judging. She is my shero, and I was looking forward to a major film being made about her story, because her life has all the elements of a great story. There's a love story, it's action adventure,
the betrayal.
there's betrayal, there's,
the bounty for her capture, which was $40,000,
Right.
which today is equivalent to $2 million.
Right.
Harriet Tubman was, during the Civil War, was the only black woman allowed to go from, to the different military bases carrying a bag of herbs. Maybe it was marijuana, maybe it wasn't.
Maybe it
And she
wasn't.
was nursing our soldiers. She made history as the first woman in American history to lead a successful raid, the Combahee River Raid, June 1st, 1863. Harriet Tubman scoped out 3 plantations in South Carolina on the Gullah Islands by herself. Her face the revolver and her hymn book. And then June 2nd is when she went back with 3 boats and 7 other men, and where she freed over 1,000 of our ancestors.
Wow.
So there's so many facets to her.
And that's what's so amazing about her. She was triumphant.
She was, she was so fearless, and she was diplomatic, and she never stepped foot in school. She only wrote her name once in her life. And what's interesting is that now I'm being asked to be the keynote speaker at commencement speeches.
Wow.
So I gave my first commencement speech last month, and it was amazing.
Wow. I can't wait to see it.
The Harriet Tubman movie? We should go together.
Yes. No, but I was talking about I can't wait to see your show.
Well, thank you, darling. Thank you.
So let's talk about some of the other acting gigs you have. I noticed that you have done appearances in the Dark Tower.
During the scene, you're there like 13 hours a day, so you want to make fun with it. So my partner and I, they partnered with some random guy. So we were supposed to walk inside where it says emergency room. We were over on 18th Street in Manhattan. So every time, before we even made it to we would always say, can we make it to the Y and the word emergency? At least we can get there. So before we made it to the Y, they would yell, cut, reset, and we're like, oh my goodness. The 5th time, I heard, hey love, you're never gonna make it to the Y. Not knowing that, and I'm like, who's this guy? It was Idris Elba.
Tall drink of chocolate milk. Okay.
Yeah, and then after we were done, we were wrapped for the night. I just walked up to him and I said, hey, how you doing? I'm Chris. And he was like, hey, love, how are you, love? And then his entourage, his security made a circle around us. And it's just Idris and I. But I'm a businesswoman, so there wasn't any flirting or any of that. And so I'm like, oh, I'm with the New York Women in Film and Television. And he was like, yes, love. Every time I said something, yes, love. Yes, love.
Okay.
What can I do for you, love? And then he took my business card and said he'll do whatever he can to help further my career, love. That's his words, not mine.
Okay. I'll have to remember that when I meet him.
Yes.
Because I may not be behaving that way. You also did Orange is the New Black.
Yes, season 1,
like?
I think episode 2 at the beginning. I wish I would have known it was going to be such a success. I would have tried to stay on longer. It was cool. I was visiting one of the inmates in there, so it was pretty cool. And the camera was behind me, so I'm one of those that kept trying to turn around to get my face on screen. So it was fun.
Okay, what about Law and Order?
Law and Order was cool. The first time I played a maid, then I played an attorney, then I played a hooker.
Oh, okay.
And then so it's funny because the episode that I worked on, I was in I might have been an attorney. Method Man was the guest star that day. Method Man from Wu-Tang. And so I'm like, so at the time, I wasn't union yet, SAG-AFTRA yet. So I said, I need my SAG card. What can I do? And then one of the actresses said to me, that guy is staring at you. And I'm like, who? And so I'm like trying to squint. I'm like, let me put my glasses on and start trying to be cute. I put my glasses on and it's Method Man. And I'm like, oh, well, I lived on Staten Island for about a decade. Well, let me see if I can, maybe when he's walking, let me just speak to him. So long story short, he happens to be walking to the men's room. And I said, hey, METHOD, man. He was like, what's up? What's up? And I'm 5'3". He's like 6'4". So I'm like, I used to live on Staten Island. He was like, oh yeah? I was like, yeah. I said, anyway, listen, I don't have my Screen Actors Guild card yet. Can you help me? I'll work for you for free if you help me get into the union. And he was like, give me your card. So I gave him my card, the whole I'll have my people call your people. I'm like, yeah. And I'm thinking, I am my people. I don't have people. So 8 hours later, I get a phone call from California from Method Man's manager. And they actually hired me. And I was flown to New Orleans, first class, and I was hired as Method Man's chauffeur and personal assistant. And he sat in the front seat every single day.
Good thing you had a license.
Yes, so he told me I can't call him Method Man. He said, your family now, call me John John.
Oh, wow.
So I said, okay. He said, your family, Mike Epps' family. So I said, okay, that is what's up, sir. That is what's up.
That's an interesting story. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so what about Blue Bloods?
Blue Bloods was cool. I played a tourist the first time, and the second time there was what was there? There was the mosque was supposed to be blown up. So I'm sitting on top of the bus, the double-decker New York City bus, and Donnie Wahlberg is across from me, blasting Marky Mark's like first album. And he's just like nodding his head, just bumping, and I'm just like, if he doesn't turn this off, you know? But it was cool. It was cool.
Cool. Jessica Jones?
Jessica Jones was fun. I played, it's funny because I worked on it a few times, but the episode was, we were hired actors and costume artists for film inside the film. It was interesting though. That was cool. Luke Cage was great. I had a lot of fun on Luke Cage. I got to see Rosario Dawson again. We had worked together 8 years prior to that. So then she hugged me and I let her know what I've been up to as Harriet Tubman. She was like, I love Harriet Tubman. So she's showing me all these facts. I'm like, yes, that is true. Yes, that's in my show. And then she said to me, can you perform for the youth whom I mentor in Manhattan? I said, sure. So reached out to them, and that was my 400th standing ovation. And then I met recently with Cory Booker, who loves Harriet Tubman as well. So, you know, I never get into people's personal business, but I said, Cory, I worked with Roro on Luke Cage, and she asked me to perform for her youth. And he's like, oh, yeah, come on, let's just take a selfie. Shut up. Let's take a selfie, you know? But, yeah, it was cool.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. So I know you've been spending a lot of your time doing the Harriet Tubman Herself show. Yes. Do you have any other projects going on?
So it's just basically just Harriet Tubman, but I have different renditions of it. I have the show where I added Dr. King. I have the show where I added Dr. Maya Angelou. I have the show where I added Hazel Scott. So those I do in South Jersey at various senior centers because they love it. They always want me back like once a month. So I keep on adding different material for the senior citizens. And then another show, well, I don't know how, but one of the guys said, do you know Gloria Gaynor? I said, well, she's a friend of one of my descendants. He was like, well, I know that song, I Will Survive. And the next hour and a half, I was their private jukebox.
Wow.
Yes, it was fabulous. So you kind of never know. That's why I love live theater, because you never know where the journey is going to take you.
Amazing.
It's just fabulous.
Good. So what advice would you give someone who wants to start acting on stage or even singing?
What advice would I give? Well, be persistent. You know, always know that no means not now. Never take no personally. You know, I always, even before the song came out, I would say, thank you, next. You know, but you really have to have that mentality, like, do not take it personally. You cannot have, you know, soft skin. You can't wear your heart on your sleeve in this business, you know. And make your own breaks. Like this quote I read, you know, if they won't let you play in their court with their ball, buy your own ball and build a court.
Wow.
So that's kind of what I did. You know, so I didn't rely on anyone in Hollywood to reach out to me. I would say, okay, well, I am competent. People obviously love my show. I barely promote it on social media, and I've gotten all these shows and all these standing ovations. And I said, I wonder, I'm going to decide how much I want to make, you know? And so I would just, actually, people would call me and say, oh, I saw you at this place. Because after every show, I would get 5 to 15 bookings after each and every show.
Wow.
So that's how it's able to just go. So, you know, kind of do your own thing as well. Don't take no personally. And like I told the students when I spoke at the commencement, I gave the commencement speech last month, I said to them, I was speaking about the word fear, F-E-A-R. I was dressed as Harriet Tubman for the commencement speech, and I basically, and I take my own advice, and it's basically, it was Harriet Tubman speaking, saying that she's learned a lot from the word fear, F-E-A-R. Remember, fear is false evidence appearing real. You can fear, you can fear everything and run, or you can face everything and rise. And everything really is your attitude in life, you know. And I listen to podcasts and read books. You know, I'm big on Andrew Carnegie. I'm big on Jim Rohn. And what's it, Earl Nightingale, you know, Think and Grow Rich, and your attitude, and which is so true, your attitude in life. Well, you know, if you're, not that you have to be bubbly all the time, but no one wants to be around someone that complains a lot, because when we complain, we remain, you know, and many of the successful men and women, they always say the same thing: work harder on yourself than you do on anything else. And success, we attract success by the person that we become. So if you work so hard on yourself and try to be the best person, so I told myself, if I'm going to do Harriet, I'm going to be the best Harriet of my generation. You know, like, I want to make history, and I did. I'm already in Mars. I have a statue being made of me, you know, and Yeah, I don't know. I never go in through the front door also. And I look at everything as an opportunity. So look for the opportunities and things. Say yes more to life. Don't be angry, you know. And what's his name? Earl Nightingale always, and Jim Rohn said the same thing. Our rewards in life will always be in direct proportion to our contribution and our service. So serve people more. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because karma, you know.
That's good. So if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would
my
they follow?
social media is Harriet Tubman Herself.
Okay.
Harriet Tubman Herself. My email, harriettubmanherself@gmail.com, and Harriet Tubman Herself.
Excellent, excellent. Well, everyone, you got the information. Make sure you support Harriet Tubman Herself and Christine Dixon. And until next week, consider yourself Blacklit. Thank you. Blacklit highlights films, television programs, and stage plays that feature African Americans both up front and behind the scenes. We also discuss social issues as it relates to some of these programs and how they may or may not impact our communities.
A Small Tree Runs Red is based off of a true story that took place, not story, a true event that took place in Valdosta, Georgia in 1918. It surrounds the life of a young lady named Mary Turner, who was 8 months pregnant. At the time, she was lynched out for speaking against the lynching of her husband.
The blacks that were there, you know, they were in their lane. They knew they didn't want to rock the boat. They wanted everything to kind of be the same because of the fear, you know, because of the fear of lynching during that time and, you know, what have you. So he was a different type of man, you know, which kind of brings it back to the title, Nothing But a Man.
When I wore it straight, I know I felt more palatable to some people, and in some spaces I felt like I can ease and blend in a little bit, but even now people who really know me, they agree. They're like, I feel like your natural hair like matches you as a human more.
But what I learned about primarily was not as much about Althea specifically as the milieu in which she came up through the ranks before she broke into Major League Tennis, which was the American Tennis Association, was the Black Tennis Association. And what a lot of people probably don't know is it's the first sports organization founded by blacks in America in 1917, and actually this year is the 100th anniversary.
So until next time, consider yourself Blacklit. Thank you for joining us.